Hey there guys, Mr. Chicken here and welcome back to another video. It's been a while. Now, Tom Baker is probably the most recognisable of all the classic Doctors, which makes him one of, if not the most recognisable Doctor of them all. In over half a century of Doctor Who content, Tom Baker lasted from 1974 to 1981, meaning that he had 7 seasons worth of content, over 7 years worth of episodes. Because of this, many people grew up with him as the Doctor, and to many fans of the show, including me to some extent, he is the definitive Doctor. The definite article, if you will. The biggest reason for this obviously being that he had one hell of a run of stories in his 7-year tenure as the Doctor. And that's what the goal of this video is. I'm going to count down the top 5 best Tom Baker 4th Doctor stories of the entire classic era. Now, there are a couple of rules I want to set down. One, this is obviously my own opinion. Don't get too offended by whatever opinions I have in this video, because at the end of the day, cool. If you like it, good on you. If you don't like some of the stories I mention, well, we can agree to disagree there. The other thing I want to talk about is, because I haven't jumped down the rabbit hole of 4th Doctor Big Finish, or the books, or the comics, or anything like that, this will be focused entirely on his televised stories. And with that said, I'm going to quickly give a few honourable mentions, them being The Ark in Space, The Hand of Fear, and Sharda. Now let's get into the video. At number 5, we've got The Brain of Morbius. Now, this story was in the middle of Season 13, and true to Season 13, it's a gothic body horror story. It's very much inspired by Frankenstein and some other horror features from the time, and the plot of it is basically that a long sort of dead Time Lord named Morbius is being brought back to life in a Frankenstein style by a mad scientist, and this mad scientist, Solon, fancies the Doctor as the final piece in all this. And this episode has a few things that have stood the test of time. In particular, the Sisterhood of Khan, which also appear in this, will later show up in Night of the Doctor. And this is where Chris Chibnall got his brilliant idea for the Timeless Child. Just saying, those faces, they're Morbius's faces, not... I refuse... No, Season 12 isn't canon. But despite all of that, I've got to say that this was a really great horror story. All the cult elements are done really well here. The atmosphere is really creepy, thanks to some really nice direction, some really nice production design, some great music. The dialogue's pretty scary, and I think it's overall very well paced. There are some slow points. There are a couple of bits that could have been done better. In particular, I think they sidelined Sarah Jane quite a bit in this, although they do push the characters to their limits properly in this one. Without giving any major spoilers, both the Doctor and Sarah have some very challenging things happen to them in this story. One thing I remember in particular is the mental battle between Morbius and the Doctor, which is where we get those famous faces. Chibnall, what are you doing? But despite that, Morbius was a great villain. He was really good in this story. Solon, for one, I think he probably gives the best performance in the story, but 2, he is also a really creepy addition to the story. But overall, the plot's really interesting. I like where it got its inspiration from. It's creepy, it's well paced, it pushes the boundaries of its characters and the show, and it's gained a reputation. It's a fan favourite that perfectly sums up what Season 13 was, and for that reason, it's my 5th favourite 4th Doctor story. Okay, Towns Wangchang. Now, I know what everyone's going to say, so let's just address the elephant in the room. Yes, certain elements of this story have not aged too well.
I understand we all look the same.
But saying that, other parts of it has. I would argue that The Talons of Wangchang has the best production design of any classic Doctor Who story ever. And I think it's just amazing, all this production design. Nothing looks cheap in this story, especially for the 70s. The plot is admittedly weird in some places, but I really like all the twists and turns they put in it. You can tell a lot of affection and care was put into the weird gothic horror of the towns of Wangchang, and I think it's worth commendation for. It's well directed, and a lot of the characters and dialogue is actually really well handled, minus all the, well, you know.
Are they all Chinese?
Gutter scrapings of Shanghai.
And one midget.
Despite all that, I actually really like all the characters in this. I think the reveal with who Wangchang actually is was done really well. I think Jago and Lightfoot were pretty good one-time companions. It gives Leela a load to do, which is awesome. As always, Tom Baker is great in the role. I think the pacing is really good. I think that the overall plot was really interesting and engaging, and I like the twists that they put in there, although some parts of it weren't so good, namely the giant rat. But other than that, this is, in my opinion, a perfect example of what the golden age of Doctor Who was like. It was such an authentic Sherlock Holmes-inspired story that took its horror very seriously, the production design was great, and it really did push the limits of what could be shown on television, for better or for worse. This one really hurts to include here, because Pyramids of Mars is a story I absolutely adore and is one of my all-time favourite Doctor Who stories, but I had to put it here. Pyramids of Mars represents everything I personally love about the show. The Doctor is pushed to his absolute limit by a villain in Sutekh, more about him later, and I'm just going to say, my favourite part of any of Doctor Who are the mind games between Sutekh and the Doctor. I think it's brilliant to see the Doctor pushed to his limit in a case where even he doesn't know who's going to come out on top. Sarah Jane is given a huge amount to do in this story. She does the normal companion stuff, plus she is proven to be very capable in this. She uses a gun, and it's never questioned how she knows how to use a gun, she just does. The plot is really interesting this time around. It's only a 4-parter, and because of that, the pacing flows perfectly. Each part of the plot feels really well integrated. The whole direction this story goes for is so gothic and atmospheric, and I love the atmosphere of this story. Once again, for this era, there's some great acting, some great production design. Every twist and turn in the plot I thought was really well done. And now let's just talk about him. Sutekh is my favourite non-recurring Doctor Who villain. He is absolutely insane in this one. There's so much power and intelligence that can be brought forward just through a look and a voice, and I think Gabriel Wolfe does an amazing job voicing the character, and he is by far one of the best villains in Doctor Who history. I love the way he confronts the Fourth Doctor and the two of them play off each other, and because of that, he makes this story a very tense and visceral story where the stakes are really felt, and because of that, I love Pyramids of Mars. I think it's amazing. City of Death was written by Douglas Adams, who went on to write Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and it shows here. This is a brilliantly written story. This is probably the funniest and most comedic Fourth Doctor story out there. It's got some great dialogue, some great comedy. It's really well paced, it flies straight by. I enjoy this story every time I watch it. It has a rather creative plot actually, and most of all it succeeds at having some great character moments. The Fourth Doctor's character moments are so good. He is so witty in this story. I also really like the companions here. Romana's given quite a bit to do, and that's really fun. I also like Duggan, who is exclusive to this story, but he's really fun, so what can I say there? All the direction's fun there. The production design has actually gone to new levels, because this is the first time they filmed outside of the UK for one of their stories. I really like the music in this one. I think the acting is really good. Julian Glover makes a really nice addition as Scaroth, and it's just fun all the way through. This story has no faults in terms of its writing, its character, and era defining for the Fourth Doctor, and it's got a really cool plot in here, hence for that reason it's gotta be at number 2. Look, you all knew it was going to be this one. Genesis of the Daleks is, in my opinion, the best Fourth Doctor story. The way it explores the morals of either side, the grey areas with each of their moralities, each character has its own debatable moralities in this, and that makes this story so utterly intense and fascinated. The way it places different characters in different plot lines goes really interestingly, and it pushes them all to crazy levels. It has the famed "do I have the right" moment from the Fourth Doctor, where he really questions whether what he's doing is right or not. I also like the idea that the Time Lords are the ones that put him in this scenario. He doesn't make any choices in this. He is all being forced to happen to him. And because of that, this story is just really brutal. It's amazingly directed, it's got some great production design, some fantastic acting all around, and the plot is just so interesting that it's a masterclass, it really is. Now, it's a 6-parter as well, but despite that, it's still able to carry my attention the whole way through and make me invested all the way through. I thought that Davros was an absolutely brilliant addition to Doctor Who, and again, the morality shown here was amazing. His conversation with the Doctor, well, multiple of his conversations with the Doctor are amazing. The conclusion they give to Davros in this story, amazing. The acting of Davros, the design, it's all done really well. The companions in Harry and Sarah are given loads to do in this story, and no one is sidelined or overstays their welcome. Okay, Davros overstays his welcome, but he's awesome, so he gets a pass for this one. But overall, this story is just such an interesting one. The plot goes in such interesting directions. The directing itself is fantastic. The acting's great. The dialogue's great. All round, this is probably the best Doctor Who has to offer, period. And for that reason, it's perfection. It's got to be number 1 on this list. Well, that's that for this video then. So those are my top 5 favourite Tom Baker stories in the classic era. And I hope to make another video like this, either top 5 worst of Tom Baker's run, hopefully I'll make it a little bit shorter than this one, or I'll do a top 5 of another Doctor's era, maybe I'll go into New Who. Let me know which one you'd want to see in the comments below, and also let me know what your favourite of Tom Baker's era are. As always, I've been Mr. Chicken, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye bye.